Hello, I'm Keith with the Trombone Shop at Schmidt Music, back with another instrument review for you. And today I've got one of the newest models on the trombone market, the Butler Trombones C5 small bore tenor trombone. We've gone through the entire line of Butler trombones, or at least nearly everything, specifically the Lemondrop, the JJ small bore tenors, the C10 large bore, the C12 bass trombone. But, David Butler and his team have been doing a lot of development work, and as a part of that development, they have introduced two new small bore tenors, specifically the C5, the 500 bore version, and the C6, the 508 version, which we will hopefully have coming in soon as well. So as soon as I had this trombone arrive, I knew I needed to grab a video with it. So I'm going to take a play so you can hear it in action, and then I'll talk about it afterwards. I'm going to be playing everything today on my trusty S.E. Shires Michael Davis Plus mouthpiece. Over the past handful of years, I've talked multiple times, sometimes at length, about David Butler and his team and what they have been doing in trombone design. All of their work with carbon fiber instruments, starting off with outer hand slides and developing into full instruments, and all of the innovation that's been coming to the fore here. We've talked about some of the playing properties of carbon fiber, obviously the weight advantages and some of the sound performance advantages that it can give us, or some of the effects at the very least. And one of the things that I think is so great about these instruments right now is, again, it feels like there's constant innovation happening with them. I mean, over just the past year alone, we've had the satellite counterweight added on for the instruments to help to not only create some, some help in balancing the instrument, but as we've talked about, the counterweight can change how the instrument performs. David Butler has introduced his own carbon fiber lead pipes, and we've seen some development with that. And in talking with David, he said that people loved the Lemondrop, the 500 version, the J.J. Johnson, the 508 version of the horns, but there were, feedback from a lot of players who said, we wish it played a little bit more open. And I've talked some about the experience of what can happen with the carbon fiber, how it resists, resonance to a certain point there, how it can create, sometimes the impression of needing a different kind of airflow. Long story short, David and his team have developed a new, again, the C5 and C6 small bore tenor trombones with the exact idea of trying to open up the feel, the response of these instruments. And they accomplish this by changing a couple of different areas. So first off, a lot of the features with the instrument are, very much what we've talked about before. So in this case, it has an 8-inch bell, obviously, carbon fiber, has a single radius reverse tuning slide, and we'll talk about that single radius nature here in a second, as well as the bell design. Obviously, again, a 500 bore, 2 removable lead pipes. These have the bi-thread lead pipe receivers on there, which gives the player some options in what kind of lead pipes they want to put in it. And of course, a dual radius. Outer hand slide here, obviously all carbon fiber. So the changes that they made with this design in particular were changing some of the bell throat taper ideas here with the single radius tuning slide, trying to open up the movement. In particular, they describe the changing of the movement from the second leg into the bell and trying to open up this taper more within all of this. And you can very clearly see some of the stuff happening as well. The tuning slide's a different design. Again, right away when I saw this whole area here, coming into the top of the bell stem looked chunkier. So we're obviously kind of expanding things, opening things up here. And interestingly, they have also included their gloss finish, their polished finish on the outside of the bell, as well as the inside. Now, David's talked a little bit about this before. In a lot of cases, at least in some of the previous designs, he actually preferred leaving it matte because when they're going through and doing this finish, it removes some of the carbon fiber, right? So it's changing how it plays. But they've included in with the design, now, what do all these features bring to the table? How does it perform? In short, it plays wonderfully. Everything I think they set out to accomplish, which with this instrument, I think they achieved. For me, and I've talked about this a little bit, for example, with the previous iteration of the Lemondrop, I found that I really had to change my whole air approach. Like literally how I'm thinking about my air column size, changing my oral cavity, changing some of my tongue position to try to accommodate this different kind of airflow. And what I found with this, it feels much more natural. As many of you know, I tend to be more of a 508 player, in general. But we've been seeing some of these a little bit more modern 500 bore instruments that are starting to feel a little bit more open, giving players a little more option. This feels really comfortable to me. I find, just ever so much in the upper register, I have to compact things a little bit differently, but as you can hopefully tell, it's still very responsive up there. I felt like I had very easy control up to the 12th partial, 13th partial without really any undue effort, and everything slotted really, really nicely. But what really, really struck me is, again, just how overall responsive things were without having to change my playing approach, what was happening with the timbre. One of the things I've talked about with the Butlers that I kind of like is that especially with the small bores. I feel like with the large bore tenor, bass trombone, the experience is maybe a little different, but with the small bore tenors, at softer dynamics, there's this kind of smoky warmth to the instruments. When you start leaning into them, giving them some volume, some energy, the sound clarifies without getting overly bright and edgy. And what I love about this instrument is that I get some of that warmth, but it's still, even at softer dynamics, it still wants to ring a little bit more. With some of the earlier iterations, I felt like, again, I had to be very conscious of how I was putting my air through the instrument, even at soft dynamics, to get that vibration. With this, it feels more natural, but I still get some of this warmth out of it that I really like. And I also feel like that transition from that little bit more of a, slightly warm, I don't want to say covered quality, but maybe to that point, but that edge point from that into getting more of that clarity and a little bit more projection at upper dynamics, it's a softer point there. In some of the other instruments, and I find this with a lot of different designs, it can be a little bit like a sports car, where if you give it a little too much gas, all of a sudden it springs to life, sometimes out of control. With this, it feels like a little bit more of a gradual, procession between those different timbre concepts. And I tried to demonstrate that with Opera, trying to give it a little bit more juice so you can hear what's happening to the sound, but at the same time, with the ballad, trying to hold back and hearing what's happening with that. So overall, I think, and I can tell why, when I went, and worked with David and his team on our last order, I said, I think I want to look at another Lemondrop. And they said, you should really think about the C5. We've been getting a lot of great feedback. I can see why. I think it's a fantastic instrument. I think, for those folks who were not, necessarily, I'm not going to say weren't a fan of it, but these instruments didn't necessarily fit them because of the playing profile. I think these have the potential to be a different kind of experience. And then, of course, having all of the weight benefits and everything else we've talked about with the carbon fiber design. So I'm so glad that I had a chance to share the C5 with you. If you have any thoughts about what you've heard with this instrument, maybe how it compares to the Lemondrop, maybe you've been able to play one or both of those instruments, please feel free to share them in the comments. We would love to have your feedback. If you like the video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so, please think about subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification button so you can see when we have new videos that are coming out, hopefully that are relevant to you, and so that you can be a part of our community. And as always, you can find the Trombone Shop on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching.